My old man said follow the van and don't dilly-dally on the way. Off went the cart with the home packed in it. I walked behind with my old clock linen, but I dilly and dallied, dally and dilly, lost the van and don't know where to go. You can't trust the specials like the old-time coppers when you can't find your way home. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet on the seat of a bicycle built for two. It's a long way to Tipperary, it's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, Piccadilly, farewell, Leicester Square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart lies there. Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, 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 while you Lucifer to light your fag. Smile, boys, that's the style. What's the use of worrying? It never was worthwhile. So pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. Beer, beer, glorious beer, fill yourself right up to here. Drink a good deal of it, make a good meal of it, stick to your old-fashioned beer. Don't be afraid of it, drink till you're made of it, now all together a cheer. Up with the sail of it, down with the pail of it, glorious, glorious beer. Let's all go to the music hall, where the show is gay and bright. Let's all go to the music hall, where the stars are twinkling twice a night. Whether you sit in the gallery, the circle, or the pit, or whether you sit in a red plush stall, when the busy day's done and you want to have some fun, let's all go to the music hall. There's no entertainment like the good old music hall. That's the place to go to when the evening shadows fall. If you want to spot the laughter when you're feeling blue, go and work yourself a single line up in a queue. Let's all go to the music hall, where the show is gay and bright. Let's all go to the music hall, where the stars are twinkling twice a night. Whether you sit in the gallery, the circle, or the pit, or whether you sit in a red plush stall, when the busy day's done and you want to have some fun, this evening is Nicola Willis-Jones.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those of you who have yet to make up your mind, I am your chairman for this evening. On behalf of the British Players, a non-profit theatre group that for 57 years has been dedicated to bringing high-quality, traditional British theatre to the Washington, D.C. area, I welcome you to this, the very first, and hopefully the last, online music hall show. The players you are about to meet have not let this global pandemic bring them down. To the contrary, I can admiringly announce that these amazing artists have accumulated an abundant array of arias, acrobatics, allocutions, and amazing acts for audience adoration and applause. So, without further ado, as Moses asked when parting the Red Sea, why do I have to go first? I bring you the British Players' Cheeky Chappie himself, Mr. Albert Coyer.
Now everybody's got a crazy notion of their own. Some like to mix up in a crowd, some like to be alone. It's no one else's business as far as I can see. But every time that I go out, the people stare at me. With my little ukulele in my hand, of course the people do not understand. Some say, why must you be a smuck? Why don't you read a book? But I get lots more pleasure when I'm playing with me uke. Of course I take no notice, you can tell, for mother's sound advice will always stand. She said, my son, do as I say, and you'll never go astray. If you keep your ukulele in your hand, my son, keep your ukulele in your hand. While walking on the prom one night, as peaceful as could be, when some young girl said, how about a stroll down by the sea? She said her name was Jen and that she'd just come for the day. She looked so young and harmless that I couldn't turn away. So with my little ukulele in my hand, Jen and me, we strolled along the sand. We walked along for miles without a single care or frown. But when we reached the sand dunes, she said, come on, let's sit down. I felt so shy and bashful sitting there, for the things she said I didn't understand. She said, your love makes me dizzy. Come on, big boy, let's get busy. But I kept my ukulele in my hand. Yes, sir, I kept my ukulele in my hand. Made up my mind that I'd get wed some 18 months ago. I even bought a book about the things a boy should know. But just the other evening I had an awful fright. I had to get dressed quickly in the middle of the night. And with my little ukulele in my hand, I ran along the road for Dr. Brand. It didn't take him long to get his little bag of tools. I held his hat and coat and let him have my book of rules. Out of the bedroom door he looked and smiled, said, come inside and see your wife and child. My heart it leapt for joy, I could see it was a boy, for he had a ukulele in his hand. Yes, sir, he had his ukulele in his hand.
Thank you, Mr. Coyer. And where would a music hall be without darling, dazzling divas? I bring to you, fresh from a whirlwind tour of the Baltimore Tunnel, the delightful Miss Megan Williams Elkins, followed by the delectable Miss Ellen Kaplan.
That certain night
how she manages to keep that lot, I'm sure. I said to her today as she was standing at the door, don't have any more, Mrs. Moore. Mrs. Moore, please don't have any more. The more you have, the more you want, they say, but enough is as good as a feast any day. If you have many more, Mrs. Moore, you'll have to rent the house next door. They're all right when they're here, but take my advice, oh dear, don't have any more, Mrs. Moore. The local pub she uses most is called the Wooden Hut. She's first one in at opening time and last out when they shut. And when she's had a few, it's true she can't go very far. And you can hear 'em singing this to her across the bar. Don't have any more, Mrs. Moore. Yep, Mrs. Moore, please don't have any more. The more you have, the more you want, they say, but enough is as good as a feast any day. If you have many more, Mrs. Moore, you'll never get to your street door. Too many double chins gives the ladies double chins, so don't have any more, Mrs. Moore. She's worn out many husbands that in love with her they fell, and now she's on her 7th one, and he don't look too well. She married him a year ago, and on their wedding day, as they were walking down the aisle, they heard the parson say, don't have any more, Mrs. Moore. Mrs. Moore, please don't have any more. The more you have, the more you want, they say, but enough is as good as a feast any day. If you have many more, Mrs. Moore, I don't know what we'll do, I'm sure. Our churchyard is so small, there'll be no room for them all. So don't have any more, Mrs. Moore is a sin. No more husbands, no more children, no more Jim.
Thank you, ladies. At this time of year, many of us dream of the sunny shores of Florida, but not all of us can be there. Some of Florida is on the Atlantic coast, right? So, answer me this. What do you get when you cross the Atlantic with the Titanic? About halfway. Sharing his talent and tale of woe from his beachside bungalow, I bring to you the fan favourite, Mr. Malcolm Edwards.
As we entered the bridal chamber, she treated me just like a stranger. Not a word was said as we stood by the bed, side by side. Well, she said, much to my sorrow, I'll take my teeth out till tomorrow. Her teeth and her hair she put on the chair, side by side. But I was gone forever, with her glass eyes so small, with the hump and the leg tied together. She hung them on the nail on the wall. Well, I was quite broken hearted, with half of the wife I had parted. So I slept on a chair, there was more of her there, side by side.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. We'll be seeing more of you later. And speaking of seeing more, I am pleased to present a bountiful bevy of beauties. The amazing acrobat, Miss Abigail Kruger, accompanied by Miss Erin Cassidy and Miss Kristen Franco.
You smiled when we parted, it hurt me somehow. I thought there was nothing worthwhile. The tables are turning and you're crying now, while I am just learning to smile. Who's sorry now? Who's sorry now? Whose heart is aching for breaking each vow? Who's high and blue? Who's crying too? Just like I cried over you. Right to the end, just like a friend, I tried to warn you somehow. You had your way, now you must pay. I'm glad that you're sorry now. Although I forgive you, I cannot forget how you shattered all my ideals. You smiled when I told you that you would regret, and now you know just how it feels. Who's sorry now? Who's sorry now? Whose heart is aching for breaking each vow? Who's sad and blue? Who's crying too? Just like I cried over you. Right to the end, just like a friend, I tried to warn you somehow. You had your way, now you must pay. I'm glad that you're sorry now.
There's so much building going on everywhere nowadays, but on Salisbury Plain, nothing. No building at all. There hasn't been any building there for about, 4,000 years, I suppose. Even then, back in Neolithic times, there might have been some old Stone Age man standing on the observation platform watching what was going on. I expect he didn't care for it much either. Well, what's this then? You're not going to put these great ugly stones up here, are you? You can't do that. I've got ancient lights on my cave. Well, what is it then? A henge? Well, what's a henge? Well, you may call it megalithic culture. I call it vandalism. And I suppose you know that this is one of the last places for nesting mammoths in the Earl of Wessex. Well, what with them building up the long barrows and the round barrows and the bell-shaped barrows, and they've started cutting out white horses on the hillside. Have you seen them? I don't know. I think it's some sort of advert for mead. They don't call them the beaker folk for nothing. And then you come along dragging these great prefabricated dominoes all over the roads. They're not meant for that kind of traffic. Every fine weekend it's the same thing. Ox carts, nose to tail, all the way from here to the coast. Where do you get the stone from anyway? That's not local stone. I can tell you. You get it from where? The Preseli Mountains? In Wales? I know it's in Wales. I've been abroad. Well, what do you want to bring them all the way here for anyway? And you're bringing them round the wrong way. You want to bring them round the Chactonbury Ring Road, avoiding the earthworks at Avebury. What an horrible thing. Is that all there is to it then? 2 up and 1 across all the way round? Well, if that's modern architecture, bring on the next ice age, I say. Anyway, you never get a roof on it. You won't get twigs long enough. Oh yes, we had a wood enge here once, but it rotted. And what about these great picture windows all the way round the bottom? Oh, very nice, I grant you. But what about the drafts? What about the lack of privacy? Who'd want to live there anyway? Well, you will tell me when people start moving in, won't you? We get a pretty rowdy crowd in some of these new housing developments, I can tell you. I wouldn't want to be found under the altar in a crouching position. Oh, it's not going to be lived in? Well, that's something anyway. Well, what is it then? You're pulling my leg. A calendar? Isn't it a bit big for a calendar? You'd look a bit silly with that in your desk, wouldn't you? Anyway, how does it work? You come up here every morning before dawn. Well, better you than me, mate. And when the sun throws a shadow from this big stone onto this flat one here, then we shall know if it's summer. Well, that will be very helpful. But is it summer? You can't tell. Well, I'll better come and help you shovel the snow off it then.
That, of course, was one of the player's resident Scots and all-around perfect performer, Mr. John Barclay Burns. Now, I ask you to sit back and enjoy this wonderful old-time medley of the songs from our Richmond revellers, the Mrs. Franco, Cassidy, Kaplan and Boland, and the Misters Hogue, Lillick, Hanson and Elkins.
I want a girl just like the girl that married dear old Dad. She was a pearl hand, the only girl that had he ever had. She was a good old-fashioned girl with heart so true, one that loved nobody else but you. Oh, I want a girl just like the girl that married dear old Dad.
Nice to me. While he's almost breaking my heart, I'm beside him. Mercy, let his conscience guide him. Ma, he wants to marry me and be my honeybee.
Let me have that flower.
Every minute he gets bolder. Now he's leaning on my shoulder. Ma, he's kissing me.
Scene dark,
Silvery moon is shining through the trees.
sleep will banish sorrow.
Tears and parting may make us forlorn,
But with the dawn, a new day is born. So I'll say good night, sweetheart, though I'm not beside you. Good night, sweetheart, still my love will guide you. Dreams enfold you.
in each one I'll hold you. Good night, sweetheart, good night.
In the shade of the old apple tree, where the love in your eyes I could see, with the voice that I heard, like the song of a bird, seemed to whisper sweet music to me. I could hear the still buzz of the bee in the blossoms you sent to me.
With a heart that is true, I'll be waiting for you in the shade of the old apple tree. Just watching everything on that old garden wall, clinging so tightly. What there may be before, as you grow older, I'll be constant and true, and just like the ivy, I'll cling to you.
Thank you, Richmond Revellers, for that rousing rendition. Our next artiste is paying homage to one of the players' treasures that we lost this year, the lovely Joan Roseboom. Here to perform a piece in remembrance of her is Miss Eileen Kent.
My mother said when first I wore a long black skirt and blouses to always keep an eye on anything that's wearing trousers. They're always running after pretty little girls like me. But if one starts to chase me, I shall show my dignity. For my mother said, always look under the bed before you blow the candle out. See if there's a man about. I always do. You can make a bet, but it's never been my luck to find a man there yet. One night I found a man upstairs beneath my bed. How funny! But when I pulled him out, I found 'twas but a tailor's dummy. And oh, it did upset me, girls. I screamed out in alarm. Ah! But I let him stay there all night, 'cause it couldn't do no harm. For my mother said, always look under the bed before you blow the candle out. See if there's a man about. I always do. You can make a bet, but it's never been my luck to find a man there yet. The girl next door had burglars in. Beneath her bed one tarried. She caught him and reformed him. In a fortnight they were married. If there's a young man here tonight who fancies I'm all right, I'll leave the door wide open if he'll rob my house tonight. For my mother said, always look under the bed before you blow the candle out. See if there's a man about. I always do. You can make a bet, but it's never been my luck to find a man there yet.
The Sultan sat on his oriental mat at his harem, High Street, Persia. He took one sip of his coffee, just a drip, and he said to his slave, "Oh, curse ya! Oh, curse ya, curse ya, curse ya! It's the horriblest coffee in Persia. What I want is a proper cup of coffee made in a proper copper coffee pot. I may be off my dot, but I want a cup of coffee from a proper copper pot. Tin coffee pots and iron coffee pots, they're no use to me. If I can't have a proper cup of coffee from a proper copper coffee pot, I'll have a cup of tea." When Bonaparte found that he was in the cart and he'd lost that Waterloo fight, he gave his sword up to Wellington the Lord and he said, "You British, you do fight. So you've won Waterloo, sir. Now what am I having with you, sir?" What I want is a proper cup of coffee made in a proper copper coffee pot. I may be off my dot, but I want a cup of coffee from a proper copper pot. Tin coffee pots and iron coffee pots, they're no use to me. If I can't have a proper cup of coffee from a proper copper coffee pot, je prendrai du vin. What I want is a proper cup of coffee made in a proper copper coffee pot. I may be off my dot, but I want a cup of coffee from a proper copper pot. Tin coffee pots and iron coffee pots, they're no use to me. If I can't have a proper cup of coffee from a proper copper coffee pot, I'll have a cup of tea. What I want is a proper cup of coffee made in a proper copper coffee pot. I may be off my dot, but I want a cup of coffee from a proper copper pot. Tin coffee pots and iron coffee pots, they're no use to me. If I can't have a proper cup of coffee from a proper copper coffee pot, I'll have a cup of tea.
And that, of course, was the clever and talented Joe Lillick, coming to us from our neighbour to the north, Canada. These next players need no introduction, as they have already met. Please welcome the Mrs. Limburgen, Palace, Sudan, Dib, Tessia and Hogue.
If I were not upon the stage, something else I'd rather be. If I were not upon the stage, a tennis player would suit me. You'd hear me all day long, and this would be my song. Swing your racket, bash your balls straight across the net. Swing your racket, bash your balls straight across the net. Swing your racket, bash your balls straight across the net. Swing your racket, bash your balls straight across the net. If I were not upon the stage, something else I'd rather be. If I were not upon the stage, a swimmer would suit me. You'd hear me all day long, and this would be my song. Overarm breaststroke, dive into the sea. Overarm breaststroke, dive into the sea. Over Over our backstrokes, straight into the sea. Over our backstrokes, straight across the sea.
If I were not upon the stage, something else I'd rather be. If I were not upon the stage, a golfer would suit me. You'd hear me all day long, and this would be my song. Tee up, wiggle, waggle, look, a hole in one. Tee up, wiggle, waggle, look, a hole in one.
Over our backstrokes, straight across the net. Over our backstrokes, straight across the net.
If I were not upon the stage, something else I'd rather be. If I were not upon the stage, a gym mistress would suit me. You'd hear me all day long, and this would be my song. Touch your toes, take a deep breath, tuck down to your knees. Touch your toes, take a deep breath, tuck down to your knees. Touch your toes, take a deep breath,
Straight across the net. Swing your racket, brush your barrel, straight across the net.
If I were not upon the stage, something else I'd rather be. If I were not upon the stage, a chef would suit me. You'd hear me all day long, and this would be my song. Pluck its feathers, chop its head off, bump it in the oven. Pluck its feathers, chop its head off, bump it in the oven.
Swing your rackets, touch your barrel, straight across the net. Swing your rackets, touch your barrel, straight across the net.
If I were not upon the stage, something else I'd rather be. If I were not upon the stage, a gardener would suit me. You'd hear me all day long, and this would be my song. Cut the tree, trim the hedge, don't forget the bush. Cut the tree, trim the hedge, don't forget the bush. Cut the trees, trim the hedge, don't forget the bush. Cut the trees, trim the hedge, don't forget the bush. Cut the trees, trim the hedge, don't forget the bush.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to a nice place to pause and refill our pints and prepare for our next act. This reminds me of a friend who recently went to a bar and ordered a pint. The barman said he had to go change the keg and would be right back. As soon as he left, my friend heard a voice. "You look very smart tonight, sir." But he could not see where the voice came from. A minute later, "Your tie looks absolutely amazing, sir." Really confused, my friend asked the barman on his return what was going on. And the barman said, while he pulled a pint, "Oh, that's just the complimentary peanuts." We will resume in a moment with some spirited sing-alongs.
Hello, hello, who's your lady friend? Who's the little girlie by your side? I've seen you with a girl or two. Oh, 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 I am surprised at you. Hello, hello, stop your little games. Don't you think your ways you ought to mend? It isn't the girl I saw you with at Brighton. Who's your lady friend? I'm Henry the Eighth, I am. Henry the Eighth, I am. I got married to the widow next door. She's been married Come, drink some port wine with me down at the old Bull and Bush. Hear the little drumming band, la 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 la. Just let me hold your hand, dear. Do come and have a drink or two down at the old Bull and Bush, Bush, Bush.
With three famous beauties of classic renown, Cleopatra, Godiva, Mary West. We've come back to see what it's like up in town, Cleopatra, Godiva, Mary West. My story was told by Shakespeare sublime. My bear-like performance is famous in rhyme.
And everyone's been out to see me sometime.
Cleopatra, Godiva, May West. Cleopatra, Godiva, May West. In history's pages we're three of the best. Mark Antony said I was rather a fine. I've got peeping Tom at the back of my mind.
And I'm just a girl from the back and behind.
Cleopatra, Godiva, May West. A word of advice to the men ere we go, Cleopatra, Godiva, May West. You're looking for nice bits of homework, we know, Cleopatra, Godiva, May West. We're three bits of pastry that like to be fast, so give us a ring if it comes to the worst.
And don't forget me if you want a good bust.
Cleopatra, Godiva, May West. Cleopatra, Godiva, May West. In history's pages we're three of the best. They made me a mummy all pickled in salt. I shocked all the mummies when I made my halt.
If I'm not a mummy, it isn't my fault.
Cleopatra, Godiva, May West. Cleopatra, Godiva, May West. In history's pages we're three of the best. I bathed in the Nile, they all said, water! I gave peeping Tom a good eye for I know.
And I bathe alone, but it's not a bad show.
Cleopatra, Godiva, May West.
Those, of course, were the players' own Botticelli babes, the Mrs. Hogue, Leenbruggen and Powers. Good night, ladies. Next up is one of our sweet songbirds, Miss Daria Antonucci, who will be followed by another tale of confinement from Misters Hogue and Coyer. Talking of birds, did you know on the Canary Islands there is not one single canary? And the Virgin Isles? Exactly the same thing. Not one canary there either. Now, Miss Daria Antonucci.
The
upon my knee.
What's my name?
Sonny boy, you
How old am I?
are only 3.
What's my
Sonny
name?
boy, you've no way of knowing. There's no way of showing what you mean to me.
What's my name?
Sonny boy,
What's the weather like outside?
never gray sky.
What don't you mind?
I don't mind the gray sky.
Oh, yes, you do.
Oh, no, I don't.
Oh, yes, you do.
Oh, no, I don't.
Oh, yes, you do.
Sit down.
Oi! What have I told you about keeping keys in your pocket?
Make them blue.
What's my...
Sonny boy,
All right, keep your hair on.
friends may forsake me.
I'm not surprised shouting at them like that.
Are you quite finished? Let them all forsake me.
Got the gear.
Look, one more word out of you and it's the woodpile. You won't see me through, Sonny boy.
Got you that time, didn't I? Where do I come from, Daddy?
You're sent from heaven, and I know your word.
I can see right up your nose.
You made a heaven
For who, right? Where, on what?
for me right here on earth.
God bless me!
Sit down.
Wait, the keys.
When I'm old and gray,
What do you mean, when?
promise you won't stray, dear.
I promise. I'm quite attached to you.
Love you so, Sonny boy.
Thank you, gentlemen. As I have always said, there is nothing like a good play. And that was nothing like a good play. Now we bring you one of our supreme songstresses, the stunning Miss Serena Dibb.
I'm a young girl and I've just come over from the country where they do things big. And amongst the boys, I've got myself a lover, and since I've got a lover, why I don't care a fig. The boy I love is up in the gallery. The boy I love is looking now at me. There can't you see, waving his handkerchief, as merry as the robin that sings on a tree. There he is, can't you see, waving his handkerchief, as merry as a robin that sings on a tree.
By the old mine pagoda, looking eastward to the sea, there's a Burma girl a-settin', and I know she thinks of me. For the wind is in the palm trees, and the temple bells they say, come you back, you British soldier, come you back to Mandalay, come you back to Mandalay. Come you back to Mandalay, where the flying fishes play. Can't you hear the paddles chunking from Rangoon to Mandalay? On the road to Mandalay, where the flying fishes play, and the dawn rolls out like thunder out from us, from China Bay. Ship me somewhere east of Suez, where the best is like the thirst, and there ain't no 10 commandments, and a man can raise a thirst. For the temple bells are calling, and it's there that I would be, at the old mine pagoda, looking lazy at the sea, looking lazy at the sea. Come ye back to Mandalay, where the old flotilla lay. Can't you hear the paddles chunking from Rangoon to Mandalay? On the road to Mandalay, where the flying fishes play, and the dawn rolls out like thunder from across the China Bay.
That, of course, was the player's talented and treblesome tenor, Mr. Chuck Ho. Our next artistes are indeed birds of a feather, struggling to get their ducks in a row in a tale of game and glory. I present to you the Misters McElroy, Barclay Burns, Hanson, Lillick and Edwards.
I try to understand him and help him all I can. But sometimes of an evening I feel a trifle dim. All alone I'm plucking peasants when I'd rather pluck with him. I'm not the pheasant plucker, I'm the pheasant plucker's mate. I'm only plucking pheasants 'cause the pheasant plucker's late. I'm not the pheasant plucker, I'm the pheasant plucker's mate. I'm only plucking pheasants 'cause the pheasant plucker's late.
I don't like plucking pheasants. Plucking pheasants, I get stuck. Though some peasants find it pleasant, I would rather pluck a duck. And plucking geese is gorgeous, I can pluck a goose with ease. But pheasant plucking's torture, 'cause they haven't any grease. I'm not the pheasant plucker, he has gone out on the tiles. He's only plucked one pheasant and I'm sitting here with piles. I'm not the pheasant plucker, he has gone out on the tiles. He's only plucked one pheasant and I'm sitting here with piles.
You have to pluck them fresh. If they're fresh, it's not unpleasant. I knew a man in Dunstable could pluck a frozen pheasant. They say the village constable has pheasant plucking sessions with the vicar of a Sunday twixt his first and second lessons. I'm not the pheasant plucker, I'm the pheasant plucker's son. I'm only plucking pheasants till the pheasant pluckers come.
He's not the pheasant plucker, I'm the pheasant plucker's son. He's only plucking pheasants till the pheasant pluckers comes.
My good friend Godfrey's most adept, he's really got the knack. He likes to have a pheasant pluck before he hits the sack. I like to lend a helping hand, I gather every feather. It's really all this pheasant plucking keeps us paired together. I'm not the pheasant plucker, I'm the pheasant plucker's friend. I'm only plucking pheasants as a means unto an end.
He's not the pheasant plucker, he's the pheasant plucker's friend. He's only plucking pheasants as a means unto an end.
Me husband's in the forest, always banging with his gun. If you could hear me awful cries, I'm sure that he would run. 'Cause they're fluffing all me crannies and feathers up me nose. And I'm itching in the kitchen from me head down to me toes. I'm not the pheasant plucker, I'm the pheasant plucker's wife. And when we pluck together, it's a pheasant plucking life.
She's not the pheasant plucker, she's the pheasant plucker's wife. And when they pluck together, it's a pheasant plucking life. And when they pluck together, it's a pheasant plucking life.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that bit of foul humour. Did you hear about the man from England who has been jailed for breaking lockdown while standing in for his father at work? The pheasant pluckers defence team said it was one of the hardest sentences they'd ever come across. And now, what you have all been waiting for. Drum roll, please. The players' own sizzling, sultry, scorching red-hot mama, Miss Bethany Blakey.
Two sweethearts courted happily for quite a while. This simple life of country folk. But when the lad told girlie he must go away, her little heart with grief most broke. She said, you know it's true, rushes to the train. As it was pulling out, he heard his girlie shout this loving, sweet refrain. Some of these days you'll miss me, honey. Some of these days you'll feel so lonely. You'll miss my hugging. You'll miss my kissing. You'll miss me, honey, when you go away. You'll feel so lonely, just for me only. For you know, honey, I'll have my way. And when you leave me, I know it won't grieve me, 'cause you'll miss your little red hot mama. Yes, some of these days.
Kathmandu by J. Milton Haynes, MC. There was a one-eyed yellow idol to the north of Kathmandu. There's a little marble cross below the town. There's a broken-hearted widow tends the grave of Madhkuru, and the little god forever gazes down. He was known as Madhkuru by the subs of Kathmandu. They thought he was hotter than they could tell. But for all his foolish pranks, he was worshipped in the ranks, and the girls daughter smiled at him as well. He had loved her all along with a passion so strong that she loved him was plain for all to see. But she was only 21, and arrangements had begun to celebrate her birthday with a ball. He wrote and asked her what gift she'd like from Madhkuru. She talked as they dismissed the squad. Squad, not cod. Jestingly, she replied that nothing else would do but the green eye of the little yellow god. Ooh. The night before the dance, Carew seemed in a trance. They chuffed at him as they puffed on their cigars. But for once he didn't smile and sat alone a while, then went out into the night beneath the stars. What do you expect at these prices? He returned the following morning with his shirt and tunic torn. Steady, steady. A gash upon his forehead, glistening red. Gash upon his cheek, glistening red. A gash somewhere on his... No. A gash upon his nose, gleaming red. They patched him up right away, and he slept throughout the day, and the colonel's daughter sat beside his bed. He woke the following morn and asked for his tunic to be sent through. She brought it, and he thanked her with a nod. He bade her search the pockets in. That's from Madhkuru, was the green eye of the little yellow god. Ooh. She berated Madhkuru in the way that women do. Oh, but strangely, her eyes were hot and wet. Well, mostly hot and wet, but his chet was soaking wet. But she wouldn't take the stone, and Carew was left alone with the jewel that he's risked his life to get. When the ball was at its height, on the dark and still temperate night, she thought of him and rushed across his rooms. As she crossed the barrack square, she could hear the lilting air of a waltz tune softly swooning through the night. The door was open wide, silver moonlight shining through. The floor beneath her feet was where she trod was wet and glistening. Dagger lay in the heart, stomach, shoulder of Mad Carew. 'Twas the vengeance of the little yellow god. There's one idol to the north of Kathmandu. There's a little marble cross below the town. There's a broken-hearted widow tends the grave of Mad Carew, and the little god is forever gazing down.
That dramatic tale was presented by the players' own Sue and Malcolm Edwards. And now, straight from his Silver Spring studio, after a tour of duty in front of Buckingham Palace, we bring you our own member of the Queen's Guard, Mr. Neil McElroy.
In the Tower of London marches life. The ghost of Anne Boleyn walks, they declare. Now Anne Boleyn was once King Henry's wife, until he had the headsman bob her hair. Ah yes, he did her wrong long years ago, but she comes up at night to tell him so. With her head tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. With her head tucked underneath her arm at the midnight hour. She comes to haunt King Henry, she means giving him what for. Gadzooks, she's going to tell him off for having split her gore. And just in case the headsman wants to give her an encore, she has her head tucked underneath her arm. With her head tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. With her head tucked underneath her arm at the midnight hour. Along the drafty corridor, she miles and miles she goes. She often catches cold, poor dear, it's cold there when it blows. And it's awfully awkward for the Queen to have to blow her nose. With her head tucked underneath her arm. Gay King Henry often gives a spread for all his pals and gals, a ghostly crew. The headsman cuts the joint and cuts the bread. Then in comes Anne Boleyn to queer the do. She holds her head up with a wild war whoop. And Henry screams, don't drop it in the soup. Oh, with her head tucked underneath her arm, she walks the bloody tower. Oh, with her head tucked underneath her arm at the midnight hour. One night she caught King Henry, it was at the canteen bar. Said he, are you Jane Seymour, Anne Boleyn, or Catherine Parr? For how the sweets on Fairy Anne can I tell who you are? With your head tucked underneath your arm.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, and those who have yet to make up their mind, brings us to our finale. It has been our honour to entertain you. When I was young, I joined a church choir to learn how to sing. After the first time I sang in church, 200 people changed their religion. So I will leave the singing to the professionals. But on a serious note, on behalf of the British players, I urge you to consider making a contribution to us. equivalent to the price of your ticket. And remember, beer was included. The information to donate is on your screen now. We cannot keep our mission alive without your continued support. Later this year, we hope to be back on the boards, bringing you the high-quality pantos, plays, and musicals. But we cannot do it without you. And now, enjoy this climactic musical medley, brilliantly accompanied by our amazing musical director, Miss Sue Mason McElroy. And we would indeed be remiss if we did not acknowledge the truly crucial work of our industrial technical director, Matt Mills, who very artfully took all these individually, safely recorded pieces and wove them into this fine evening of online entertainment. Thank you and good night.
The playground of the day. Piccadilly, Piccadilly, where the traffic goes one way. In the daytime, there's lots of life, and at night time, you'll forget your cares and strife in Piccadilly, Piccadilly, dear old London's broad highway. Anytime you'll have a play, any evening, any day, you'll find a soul doing the Lambeth Walk. Every little Lambeth gal, with her little Lambeth gal, you'll find them all doing the Lambeth Walk. Everything's free and easy, do as you're not pleasing. Why don't you make your way there? Go there, stay there. Once you get down Lambeth Way, every evening, every day, you'll find yourself doing the Lambeth Walk. I live in Trafalgar Square with 4 lines to guard me, fountains and statues all over the place, and the metropole staring me right in the face. I know it's a trifle roughy, but I look at it this way to see if it's good enough for Nessa, it's quite good enough for me.
High in the hills, down in the dales, happy and fancy free. Old Father Thames keeps rolling along, down to the mighty sea. What does he know? Oh, what does he care? Nothing for you and me. Old Father Thames keeps rolling along, down to the mighty sea. He never seems to worry, care for fortune's fame. He never seems to hurry, but he gets there just the same. Kingdoms may come, kingdoms may go, whatever the end may be. Old Father Thames keeps rolling along, down to the mighty sea.
When Britain's first and has come up, on rose from out the azure plain, on rose from out the azure plain.
This